What is up, creators? This is Tom. Welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about photo editing. Now, this is something which I've wanted to cover on the channel for a little while. I've covered it sort of bits and pieces here and there, but I never sort of delved into photo editing. So what I want to do today is talk to you about getting the most out of your camera setup, same camera, getting better photos, taking your photography to another level strictly through photo editing. And in more cut and dry terms, we're going to be taking a photo that looks like this to a photo that looks like this. I've been wanting to do more tutorials on the channel recently. I've had a bunch of people message me on Instagram and send me some tweets basically saying how much these videos have helped, and I'm super excited and happy about that. And basically, I want to start covering more things than just camera gear. I want to start talking about production and the sort of business side, and of course improving your skills outside of just the gear that you are using. The sort of next video that I'm planning in this series is to talk about color grading, because that's something which has never been a massive strength of mine, but is something which I've improved over the years, and I would basically like to share that sort of experience and the stuff that I've learned. So if you were really interested in that video, definitely drop a like on this video, maybe drop a comment down below letting me know that you are interested in that video. But let's just jump into the tips. Okay, so shooting raw when you are planning to edit your photos is pretty much a necessity. Now, there are photographers who exclusively shoot JPEG and really don't touch raw files, but on the whole, you are covering yourself with a raw file, and basically you enable yourself to really change the look and feel of the photo outside of, just capturing what it totally looks like in real life. Most sort of DSLR level cameras now will shoot raw and allow you to be able to edit these photographs. As an example of why you would want to shoot raw, here's an example of an image which is totally underexposed, and that's a sort of a learning with raw photos. As you start to get more experience with shooting raw photos, you tend to underexpose your images, and then you have room to lift that in post. So here's an example of an underexposed image, and you can just look at how much more detail we can recover in the shot, whereas if you were shooting something like JPEG, you wouldn't have the room and you would just lose that data. As we're talking about photo editing, you also need to talk about the photo itself. I see so many times people talking about photo editing, how to get a particular look. Maybe they're inspired by a particular type of photographer or trying to achieve a look that another photographer is getting. And on the whole, a lot of that has to do with how they're shooting, when they're shooting, what time of day they're shooting, and what light they like to shoot in. So let's take this photo that I shot, for example. I shot this at the Peak District. Some of the people who've been watching my channels recently will know about that trip, and this sort of photo that I took on the trip. It was one of my favorites from the trip, and I actually shot this, it was maybe a few hours from golden hour. So this wasn't a golden hour photo. You're not getting like a beautiful, insane sunset. However, it was shot probably in the last sort of quarter of the day, maybe 3-4 hours before sunset. So the light is a bit better than if it was just shining directly down on me. And there's a few really key things about this photo and the way that I decided to take it. First of all is that it's backlit. And for this sort of style of photography where the sky is being blown out and almost glowing, that was a really important thing. And there's also a bit of cloud cover, and it means that the sort of sunset or the sun is blaring through the clouds, and that is sort of creating a nice even bit of soft diffusion on that lighting. So I am backlit, the sun is behind me, and also there's a really nice glow overhead. Now, pre-editing, this doesn't look very good at all, but I knew with a bit of creative control in post, we could get this to really pop. So without further ado, let's show you how I did that inside Adobe Lightroom. Alright guys, so I'm here with this very moody shot. I have the photos in front of me. This is the one which I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go straight away with a tone curve adjustment. So we're going to hold down Alt so that our pins don't go all over the place. Apply 3 pins, and then I'm going to mute the shadows here, and then we're going to pull up the highlights here, because we don't want much detail in the shadows on this shot, much detail in the highlights. This is a nice and easy way to sort of just apply a bit more contrast to the image. So once we've done our tone curve, we can hit slash and see the before and after. That's already making quite a substantial difference. We're going to go into the basic adjustments and basically just play around with the temperature. I want this to be really warm, so I'm going to totally ignore normal white balance corrections like picking a white area on the image, and I'm going to just pull this to a point where it looks nice, and you can see that that's already like a massive difference compared to the starting image. Hit slash again, that's before and that's after. Like, that is an enormous difference. And then I'm going to play around a little bit more with these settings here. So I'm going to bump up the exposure a bit. Let's play with the contrast, maybe just increase the contrast a bit. On the highlights, we're going to add highlights. So again, we're just making everything pop a little bit more. Shadows, I'm actually going to darken them slightly, and then we can leave the whites and blacks as they are. And the clarity and the presence section is where things start to get a little bit interesting, because that's where we can add texture. And for this particular style of image where we want a lot of almost like haze and glow in the edit, we're going to bring down the dehaze. So you can see that to dehaze it would do this to the image. So what we want is actually the opposite of that, where we start to really haze up the image. And I'm actually just going to bring the shadows down to combat that as well. So you can see, again, just they're starting to really glow. That might look a little bit like we've gone backwards a little bit, but when we go into the next step, you'll see that this is going to start to really pop. So we can go into the HSL. For this particular image, we're going to bump up the orange and the yellows, and then we're going into split toning. And this is where this really starts to come alive. In the highlights section, what the split toning section of Lightroom does is basically allow you to assign a color value to the highlights or the shadows. For this image here, obviously we want a nice glow to the highlights. So we're going to pull the color picker over here and really sort of bring this up on the oranges. And you can just see that that is starting to look really good. We're losing a bit of the horizon in the glow, but that's absolutely fine. I think that is really popping. And we're going to do the same thing in the shadows, but I want them to be not as saturated and a little bit more green. And it's really looking quite nice now. The last thing I'm going to do on the image is just pull get the adjustment brush and just darken these areas down here. So it's already set to quite a large brush. And we're just going to sweep along here. This is probably set to a different correction. It's set to an exposure increase, but I'm going to bring that down, and you can see just the difference in contrast that's made. So we started with this and we are finished with this. It's just a massive difference in terms of editing. Obviously, you might not want to push this quite as far. It is quite a dramatic, quite a lot of editing on this image. You might not want it quite as far. That's fine as well, and you can go to your preference. There we have it, guys. That is a sort of start to finish edit on a shot like this, achieving a look. Maybe that's a sort of look that you've seen on Instagram or that type of thing. Just a really nice edit, in my opinion, taking your photo from looking relatively normal to something which looks a bit more dramatic, a bit more impressive, and a bit more professional. And all of that was achieved within like sort of 5 minutes within Adobe Lightroom. So it's really achievable. Hopefully you have learned something from this process. If you did, please drop the video a like it. And maybe if you're interested in more videos like this, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.